What is up, everybody? I'm Jeff London. This is the Mediocre Alaskan Podcast, where we are intolerant of weak-minded attitudes that keep people from pursuing new and exciting things in the areas of fitness, outdoors, and general lifestyle. Got a really fun episode coming up for you. I'm talking with Tim Murphrey and Steve Shannon from Fairbanks, Alaska. We're going to talk a do-it-yourself caribou bow hunt on the Haul Road, which is the road that takes people, if they want to go or are crazy enough, from Fairbanks, Alaska up to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, which you actually can't get all the way there. The road is blocked off because that's where all the oil is going. So they trace the pipeline looking for caribou and squirrels to hunt. It's going to be an awesome one. So look at that. Get your Google Maps out. This is going to be a good one. Coming up next. What's going on in Fairbanks, guys?
Snow, more snow.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. We've gotten 2 or 3 good dumps now in the last little bit.
What's the temp like?
We right around 0, I think, today.
Okay. It's that about normal?
Yeah, for February.
We've been spoiled, man. Last week it was just beautiful. It was like 28 above. You know, great skiing weather, just great to be outside. And then, nothing's been real predictable, though. This is just, when you think you're like, hey, this is going to be an easy ride for the rest of winter, and then it dumps 3 feet of snow on you or whatever.
Yeah, we did the same thing down here last March. I went down a little creek, and I was catching some fish, and it was sunny and 42, and so I thought we got it kicked, and then March showed up, and we got 5 feet of snow. It was awful, but try not to get too optimistic and temper a little bit. When April comes. March is what it is, so I'm not getting too excited, but it's at least a little more light out, which is nice.
Yeah, that's been nice here.
So what's on the docket today? Talk to me about this Haul Road hunting.
So Haul Road hunting is along the Dalton Highway, and then each side of the Dalton has a 5-mile corridor starting at the center of the Dalton Highway out 5 miles east or west of the road is a bow hunting only corridor. And I've done it 4 times. Twice was with Tim, and It's some guys decide they want to load their rifle and walk the 5 miles out, and some guys just drive up and down the road hoping to catch them in the ditch with their bow in hand. And then there's
which we've done,
that's worked
not
out.
Not ashamed of that.
No.
But yeah, it's a perfect if you're willing to sacrifice your vehicle to some degree, and you've got your bow hunting. Your bow hunting is it license? Is that what
you got to have your bow certification, bow hunting certification to take the class to get your card. That you have to have that in certain areas in Alaska that are bow hunting only. So, like Fairbanks management is right in the Fairbanks area is bow hunting only.
And now anytime you bow hunt in any. I think that was last summer in July. They passed it that anytime you're bow hunting, you have to be bow hunter certified.
Well, wasn't there like a date if you were born after a certain date, then you didn't have to get it, or is it everybody now?
Man, we're not at my house, so I don't have my regs book with me. But I thought it was everywhere, and I thought that was everybody. But I can look. I know when that initially passed. My buddy Bo, who owns a bow shop, which is appropriate. He had a bunch of people signed up to take his class to get the certification, and then it may have been a temporary thing, or maybe it was, I don't know. He said that everyone, once they found out that they were, I guess, grandfathered in or whatever, they all dropped out of the class since they didn't have to take it. And he was a little frustrated because if you're going to bow hunt, learning those sort of skills, ethics, stuff about it is probably a good thing to know regardless. I'm scrolling. Yeah, I just looked it up. If you were born on or after January 1st, 1986, you've got to pass the approved bow hunter course. You are correct.
Very random. It seems as though maybe someone was very close to that age. I don't know how they came up with that because that was last year, right?
Right. I think it was July 1st last year.
Yeah. So that's not like 20 years ago or 30 years. It's not a kind of a clean break, but interesting. All right. So tell me about the Dalton Highway. Now that runs north all the way to Prudhoe Bay, right?
Right. Yeah. North of town. I guess it picks up off of, so out of Fairbanks, we've got 3 roads out. So the Elliott Highway, which kind of goes northwest out of Fairbanks, I think. And then when you get to, there's a turnoff at Livengood, just past Livengood, that turns, if you go head west, you go to Minto and Manly. And then if you go the kind of stay straight going north, you end up, that's where the Dalton starts, I think.
Mm-hmm. And is that, it's open all the way through? Like people can just drive up there, or at a certain point is it cut off to anybody who is not unofficial business?
In Prudhoe Bay, it gets cut off. So you've got to go all the way to up to the, like, for example, you can't drive all the way to the Bering Sea. There's oil field and oil leases between you and the water. So you can drive all the way to Dead Horse, I think is the name of the actual town. And then Prudhoe Bay is where all the oil drilling and things like that happen. So you can't get into Prudhoe Bay, but you can drive to Dead Horse. And that's the last place that you can go.
And how far is Dead Horse from Fairbanks?
Almost 500 miles. Mm-hmm.
And is Dead Horse pretty much Prudhoe Bay? Is it like just outside of Prudhoe Bay, so you're essentially there, but you just can't get any further?
Yes.
Yeah, you're there. I was just there last week for my the job that pays the bills at the university. I'm a recruiter for UAF, so my area is Barrow. I go up to North Slope and recruit at Barrow High School, and I got stuck in Dead Horse for like 4 hours last week. Oh.
So you flew, it was Barrow, Dead Horse, and then down?
Yeah, well, it was when I left Fairbanks, it was Alaska Airlines they've got that all. There's a method to their madness. I think it's just really catering to slope workers.
Yeah.
So there's no direct flight to Barrow from Fairbanks. You have to go, you're either going to go to Anchorage first and then fly to Barrow. And even then, I think you stop in Dead Horse. Mm-hmm. This was direct Fairbanks to Dead Horse to then from Dead Horse to Barrow. So, but I can fly direct coming home.
Hmm. I'm going to go a little side tangent there. You're a recruiter for UAF.
Mm-hmm.
Does most of your, are you in Alaska for most of the recruiting, or do you go outside, or what's kind of your area?
I work for the College of Rural and Community Development, so I'm strictly Alaskan focused. So we service all of rural Alaska. So we have, UAF has rural college campuses in Bethel, Dillingham. Then there's the Southeast. There's Kotzebue. I think there's even a place up in Fort Yukon. They have a little outpost up there. The department I work for is Rural Student Services. So we do recruiting in rural Alaska and academic advising for those students. So we help transition rural Native students from villages to university.
What are some of the biggest issues or some of the things to help with that transition? Because you can have really bright kids in that rural setting. What are some of the biggest things you have to address with those kids as they transition to college?
The hardest thing, and this is a pretty standard kind of spiel for us, it's kind of our justification for why we exist. The hardest thing is homesickness for rural Native students. So that is the number one cause of low recruiting and retention, especially with Alaska Native males. So tend to see a little bit stronger numbers with the young ladies coming, but for all, just across the board, and not just Native students, it's just any rural student, it's really tough on them coming here. It's a cultural thing, because they have this network, these villages. Like my wife is from Utkasuk, south of Barrow, and there's on a good day, I think like 280 people in that village. And Moore Hall at UAF is the freshman dorm, and it holds more people than, is the capacity of her village. And when she first came there, the big thing was there's all these people in this big cinder block building, and not one of them is a cousin. Like in a village, it's kind of the joke. You got to date from other villages because everybody in your village is your cousin. So you can't. The dating pool is pretty small. So, but so she was. It could be hard on a rural kid coming here and not having that cultural network that you were used to. Because most rural Native folks are real. Familial, family's a big thing for them.
Yeah. I got a lot of kids who I live in Ketchikan, teach at Ketchikan, so the seniors are choosing the colleges that they want to go to, and a lot of them want to go to smaller colleges because they feel like they're going to be overwhelmed. So PLU in Seattle is one that kids look at, and they say it's a nice small school, but I think, well, you're also in Seattle, so it's not like you're going to be in some small little area. You're still going to be surrounded by a ton of people. The population of the school is a little bit smaller, but whatever makes them feel better, whatever they're most comfortable. That can be a huge change. I went to Arizona, and I was really seeking that total change. But as you said, it's different when there's family involved. I left my mom and dad versus people who growing up in Cloaca's very small community. A lot of the network of cousins and aunties and uncles and that support net is definitely different. What was some of the smallest towns you've gone to, and how do you get a hold, or how do you find these kids who are interested?
Well, the department I work with, there's 5 of us advisors. I'm the only guy. It's all the other. In fact, my wife was one of the advisors for Rural Student Services. She's moving on to do other things on campus now, but there's each of us has a region, and we kind of try to hit, just because of how budgets, how there's really not a lot of money in the state right now, and university is going through its own budget crisis. So we try to limit the travel to the bigger hubs, which is why I generally only go to Barrow. And we try to hit when there's a ball tournament or something like that. There'll be other, the outlying villages. There's 8 villages on the slope. So when the other 7 are sending students to Barrow, otherwise we just network with the district's counselors, their high school guidance counselors. So a lot of phone calls and emails to the different villages and schools, and try to tap the counselors for what students they have, and we just kind of flood them with information. And then there's a lot of word of mouth. I mean, there's somebody in every village that's generally it's gone to UAF. So just kind of network that way, and try to net them in and keep them here.
Yeah, interesting. Well, a nice little side tangent there. Back to the highway. So driving up, you have your bow hunting permit, and you are essentially road hunting until you get to a spot, and you just go walk in either direction. What are you looking for?
Yeah, it depends. There's a lot of guys that will only hunt in their rig, and that's one way to do it. There's these little gravel pullouts all over the highway, so you'll find one, and I think we kind of combined methods the last 2 times we've gone. And the first time we went, I think it was 2011, and we just kind of, it was a kamikaze weekend. Like, I think, was it Friday? We didn't have school or something like that. We took off and just drove, I think it was 14 hours to the slope. Slept in the rig, woke up, and then just started driving until we either saw Caribou or, a congregation of people that supposedly would have known what they were doing, because we didn't know what we were doing. And but there's guys that won't walk more than a few hundred yards unless they know there are caribou right there, and they'll just drive their rigs up and down the highway from south of Dead Horse to Galbraith Lake on the north side of the Brooks Range. So that's, I think, an inefficient way to do it, and definitely not the most fun way. The second time we went out, we drove up, kind of picked a spot that looked caribou-y, And
what does that look like?
I mean, it's kind of, we just, it was a spot where I think we woke up that morning and saw some on the ridge is what it was. I think the second time we were up there. And we had an idea where they kind of were. We started following like Alaska Outdoor Forums online. Truck drivers will get on there, and there's a bow hunting forum in there, and they'll get on and they'll kind of update what's going on the haul road. And you get an idea of like milepost, 312, we're seeing caribou or things like that. And for that, the second time, which was when we actually came home with caribou, we set up camp in one of the gravel pullouts. And then we just walked back. We thought we could find an easy spot to kind of walk on a little bit of raised area. It was more gravel than tundra. And we just walked back and started glassing and looking for things. And sure enough, if you sit for long enough and the caribou are moving, you're bound to see them. And so the first day we saw some, it was really foggy and they were really close to our camp, and put a stalk on a couple. And I think that was what set the hook for me with bow hunting, because we got within 25 yards of a cow.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I think that first one had a cow and a calf, and like you could hear them breathing and chewing. And that was like, yep, this is what I want to do. And they kind of knew. Yeah. The fog was like just enough that you could like lift your head a little bit. And then after that was what we just decided. We weren't going to drive up and down the road. We were going to stick to that area, and hopefully some would come through. And there was a couple good stalks in there. We were up on this knob, right? Mm-hmm. And on one, we could see them moving from north coming to the south, and we were sitting on the north side of this knob. So we went up and over, and there was a group of, I think it was like 3 or 4 bulls. And we snuck down on the south side of that knob so they couldn't see us scurry down the hill. And I remember looking at Tim, and I said, we should just lay down between these tussocks, and they're going to come right around that corner, and they're just going to walk right over us.
Is that where we were next to the pipeline? Is that where
no, that was the next one. The next one. And we decided instead of laying in the tussocks, we were going to go down closer to this little creek that was running through. And sure enough, we got down, and I mean, 2 minutes later, they're coming around the corner of this knob, and they would have stepped on us had we been laying in the tussocks, and they were instead like 70, 80 yards away. So again, it was one of those, if you can get out in front of them and wait and kind of guesstimate where they're going to be, that might work.
That's pretty much it. I mean, that's with caribou, that's all you can really do. I just watched somebody's podcast, video cast or something the other day. I don't even remember who it was, but was guided in Canada, and this dude somehow called caribou, and it was the weirdest. I've never heard anything like it. It was strange. It was really strange. And I think that's maybe that's just Canada. Maybe that might be a Canadian thing, eh? Yeah. But yeah, as far as hunting caribou, really, that's all you can do is try to anticipate where they're going to go, and then there's no trees. Everything's so flat. It's hilly there, but I mean, it's just open country.
Yeah. So, that was my question. So we're talking about north of Fairbanks. We're up and over the Brooks Range. And
after years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
I've only been as far north as Fairbanks, and so I've only been able to see the North Slope as, from meat eater videos where it's so flat and treeless, but the tussocks look pretty rough to get through. So what is it like glassing that? What are you? Is it hard to, Southeast Alaska is all trees, and so I'm not used to, unless I'm in the Alpine, I can't see anywhere. How long are you glassing for? Are you spending days there? How long do you spend until you move somewhere else to glass different areas? And how is it possible to get through all those tussocks that, quietly? What's all that like?
I think from the glassing, you just try to find a decent high spot where you can kind of see down into a couple little ravines and draws. And really, the first 2 times I've gone, it was like someone turned on the faucet and there's caribou everywhere. Like we hit it just right. And that, I think, was why I went back in 2012 with Tim. Was in 2011, we had no idea what we were doing. I remember sitting in the truck. We watched a bull. Oh man, I don't even remember how we spotted him originally, but we were in the truck and we spotted this bull, and I watched him. I stopped the car in the middle of the highway. There were thankfully no cars or 18-wheelers coming back and forth. He jumped out, crossed the road, dipped down, and just took off on like a little faster than a jog, but not quite a full run. It was about 150 yards out, and there was just enough of a lip in on the topography that he could get out in front of this bull without the bull knowing he was there. Crawled up that little wall and just laid in some.
There was a drum or something half sunk in the tundra, an old field
55-gallon drum.
And that was so lame because he was a beautiful caribou, and he was just out of velvet, and his antlers were still pink, and just a majestic animal. And I only tread bow hunt now, and I kind of was a progression. Steve got me into bow hunting, so I went compound bow. I got the Turbo Hawk, Hoyt's Turbo Hawk. Then I got serious. I fell in love with it, and I got I got the CRX. I think is what Hoyt CRX, and wonderful bow. And I shot all the time. Sometimes probably not a healthy addiction. I mean, like really all the time. I was shooting in my sleep. I'd get up in the middle of the night and go shoot outside, and decent with it, but man, that was so terrible. Because you hunt, there's nothing to gauge. If you don't have a rangefinder, you need to practice in open country like that, because it looked like it was right there. This caribou was broadside, and it looked like I could count the hairs on the spot I was looking at to double lung this animal, and it was just a given, and I used the wrong pin. I thought it was a lot closer than it was, and I shot right under him, probably 6 inches under his belly or something. And it just buries in the tundra behind it. And at that point, I was up on my knees, and I'd been made, boys. And he took off, but that was a little disappointing. And I got to say, and it won't be this way again, because Steve drove both times. And it was like he's driving up the road, and he's like, grab your bow and jump out. So I got a shot off that trip. And the next trip, and kind of laugh about it, when we were walking, we each got a little bull. We meat hunt. We're not looking for these great big. It's always nice to get the great big boo, but
I like that we say that. We're just doing it. Yeah, I'm not trying to be picky.
So, kind of a sidetrack, but just kind of explain that too, though. When we're talking about these type of hunters, and I also want to explain that Steve is also how many years younger than me?
I'm 32, so
okay, but he's younger than me, considerably younger than me, and he's in way. At this point, when we were hunting, he was in way better shape. I mean, this dude's like a CrossFit trainer now.
Yeah.
And I'm hunt ready this year. I'm there. I dropped 41 pounds. I have abs. I'm there. I'm a chiseled guy, and I am ready. I am a pack animal. I am ready to haul meat out. But I was trying to keep up with this kid, and he's out there running over the tundra, and I think I did okay, but definitely walking out as a bow hunter, that's what you want to do. And Steve and I are the same way like that. That's what we want to go do. We don't want to. And we're not really ridiculing these highway hunters, but we look at them, and some of these guys were like, 300 pounds, and we're watching them at their little camps because you can see everything up and down the road. And they have these little camps on the side of the road, and they're, coolers full of beer, and they're chain smoking Marlboros. And then you look at their camp, and they've got everybody in camp has this huge rack that, from a bull they shot. And Steve and I, the first trip, we're just shaking, how are they doing this? But like he said, they're driving up and down the road. So that second trip, after we each got, walked in and got a little bull and packed it out, and we're pretty proud of ourselves. And we were driving back to the camp to go sleep. It was almost dark, and there's this huge, we can see all the headlights of these cars up ahead of all the trucks that were watching this herd on the side of the road. And it could have been like 50 or 60 caribou. And we stopped way back, like we were like a quarter mile away or something. Yeah. And we're just sitting there kind of whispering, talking to each other, looking out the windshield. And I looked to my right, and off the side of the highway is 4 bulls. And they were maybe 100 yards or something like that. And that once again, I'm in the passenger seat. Steve's like, dude, just grab your bow and get out. And the one shrub on the entire north slope was right there by the truck. So it was about 4.5 feet tall. And so I just get out and go on the other side of the road, which is that Hall Road is the Dalton, it's a raised gravel road. So I drop down like 3 foot, and I stand behind this little shrub, and I can just see as he drove off, and these antlers are getting closer. I can see them kind of over the hump of the road, and it's like, wow, these things are going to walk right at me. And
there's an 18-wheeler that blew by at one point.
A rig went by, a truck goes by, and so this guy sees me crouched down with this compound bow behind a shrub, and he's just grinning at me like an idiot, gives me the thumbs up, and he's looking at caribou on the other side of the road like, yeah, they're coming right at you, dude. And they took off, and this bull walked right at me, made an oblique right at the shrub, walks right past it, and I think I had more fun just sitting there watching it, and I came to full draw and plugged this thing at, I don't know, man, maybe I let it go 12 yards from me and dropped the pin on it. And so that, I guess the point is, that's how it happens. That's how these guys are doing it up and down the road. I think that's the more common way. Rather than, we didn't see people walking where we walked. There was one day when we were up and down that pipeline. I mean, we could have walked out of the corridor easily with the amount of miles we put on that day. If we would have just beelined it right off the road, in no time we'd have been, in rifle country. Yeah. And
there's a couple spots where I don't know if it's the university or who has some access to that land, but there's not roads, but there's like gravel trails that are kind of on raised spots on these hills, and you can walk out. There's 2 or 3 spots that I know of that you can get probably 2 or 3 miles off the road on that high ground before you really have to start dealing with the tussocks. So those are kind of heavily used spots by guys that are traveling with the rifles. But I think that also was the draw of that hunt, was that as soon as you get off the road, you're by yourself. Nobody wants to walk on the tussocks. And so there's, you walk a half mile or just over that first hill, and there's nobody around. There's no sign of people at all. So it can be as hard or as easy as you want to make it, for sure. And when the caribou are moving, it's incredible. It's like watching planet Earth, where they're just all coming through. There's been twice that I got to see that. But then, in contrast, the last 2 times when they're not moving, there's nothing up there
for miles.
You're just like there's got to be a ground squirrel I can shoot somewhere.
Yeah. I'm on Google Earth right now, and I'm just trying to do the Google map, and I'm just tracing the road and clicking forward and forward, and it doesn't seem like any of the mounds and the little hills are getting any closer. I'm moving down the road, but it's crazy to see that open expanse. And it's too bad the Google Earth pictures are during winter. It'd be cool to see when it's not kind of, there's a little bit of fog going on and a little bit of snow. But that road hunting thing, they do it down here too, but with trees everywhere, you're essentially just hoping that you kind of walk out and then something is scared across the road or happens to be standing back in the brush a little bit, so you have a shot. But the whole getting out and walking and being alone, that's pretty sweet. But I can't imagine being that alone in what I'm looking at via the Google here. That looks pretty sweet.
And the fact that there are no, that there's not going to be anyone on a truck or on a 4-wheeler out there in the tundra is another draw to that hunt. Is as soon as you're out there, everybody's on foot.
Yeah.
And along those same latitudes up there is you're getting up to where that's the same latitude that my wife's village is at, and I've hunted there with my brother-in-laws. And that's just straight up, Inupiaq subsistence hunting, and I've done some pretty sweet. I've never bow hunted up there, but I keep saying I'm going to. Like, I want to go do that. Those guys are going to look at me like, I'm going to show up with a stick bow, and they're like, "What's wrong with you? Why would you do this to yourself?
Stop playing with your food."
Yeah, don't play with your food, right? But I rifle hunted caribou. The first caribou I ever killed was in that village, and it was a beautiful bull. And it's just the country's pretty. I mean, just to be up there. Where we were at, Toolik River, just past the lake, between Toolik Lake and Toolik River, and just, it's just the country's beautiful. You wouldn't care if you killed anything or not. Like, in a heartbeat, I would do this again with Steve, and wouldn't, and I will be stick bow hunting next time, so probably will kill absolutely nothing. Maybe ground squirrels.
We had some. They weren't bad. They were pretty good.
Steve was adamant. So, but that's also when you're out there and there's not a whole lot to do and you're not hunting. I watched this man flesh out and stretch a ground squirrel hide.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was he going to try to sell? Why go through that trouble? What did you do?
Because I killed it, so I had to eat it. We were shooting. I brought a block target, so that's one of the things that I would definitely recommend if you're planning on doing is bring a target with you, and you can shoot in camp before you go out. For me, archery is one of those. It's a perishable skill that if I go for too long, you start losing your touch. So I brought it, and you shoot 4 or 5 arrows in the morning before you go out and come back for at the end of the night, set things up. We happened to be not seeing a lot of things, and one night we were shooting. I think we had set it up at like 50 yards, and we were trying to get really tight groups. And a little ground squirrel shot past, like right past.
Well, he had been keeping us up at night too. When we would try to sleep, this thing would be barking right outside. Yeah, we got personal. So he was like, "I'm going to end this." He did.
And he went right past the target and up on this little mound, and I looked at Tim, and I think he said, "We both know what you have to do." And
but their little legs are the hindquarters. We'll call them quarters, right? The hindquarters,
like a chicken nugget.
They're like a hot wing. They were just like eating hot wings. We cooked it on the Coleman stove on the back of the truck.
If you haven't, most people think about squirrels, they think of in the cities. When I worked back in D.C. for a couple of summers when I was interning, there were squirrels that were fat and they had rabies so bad that like the foamed mouth was collecting debris as it was running about. And so when people think about, oh my gosh, eating squirrels, that just sounds disgusting. But if you look at the terrain, you look at the natural area where it's living, that thing is going to taste fine. You just got to get past the redneck or the whatever, stereotype that you have in your brain. I've never had squirrel, but you do make it sound delicious. What do you season it with or flavor it with?
Put something on occasion season. What do we?
I think just whatever. Was it Tony Shashery's?
Tony Shashery's.
I think you can put that on pretty much anything. It was tasty.
Free range squirrel.
Yeah, just have like a skillet and I think we were using Crisco because it's impossible to let that stuff go bad. So just dab of that in the pan and let it get hot, and then put the squirrel in there. Wasn't bad.
I'm looking forward to it again, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. They're made of so.
Is this Unit 26?
Yes. Okay. Yep. All the way up north. Yeah, we I mean, if you ever go up there and you see what how far a grizzly bear is willing to dig to get to them, I mean,
that's got to mean something.
Yeah.
That's a strong right there.
Is it for resident harvest ticket? Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yes. Yep. The Dalton corridor, you just need the regular general season harvest ticket, and I think right now residents can take 2. I should have done my homework before. I think you can take 2 bulls right now. I'm going to double check. 26.
It was 5, wasn't it?
When we went, it was 5,
yeah.
And we kept looking at each other like, what's going to happen? Where are we going to put them?
Yeah, all of them that we're going to get, right?
Because
5 each. No, we were worried we didn't have enough arrows.
Holiday 5-pack of Caribou. That's some work.
And I know they're changing that and talking about doing homework. I know that when I was up in Barrow High School, there was a article tacked from a local publication up there, newsletter or something, tacked to the wall. I guess students were studying it somehow, but that Teshekpuk Lake, we call it the Teshekpuk herd, that's up there in the Barrow area. They're really regulating that too. So they're changing. And I've never seen wasteful hunting. I know there's always people that will say, well, villagers can do whatever they want. And, they're always shooting whatever and leaving animals. And I saw 1 or 2 strange incidents aside. I've never seen, wasteful hunting. So they're always pretty good about managing, I think, because that's their food source. I know Utkasuk is real careful with their caribou, and they're really paying attention to it. In Barrow, they have to go a lot further, to look. You would think, well, it's Barrow, they're going to be walking right through there, but they're not, So, and I think that's a new thing for them, having to deal with that regulation of them dropping it down to X number, 2 of them, or whatever.
I know that the Teshekpuk and the Central Arctic caribou herds are down, and so that's why they dropped it from 5 caribou to just 2 bulls. And I think for non-residents, it's just 1 bull right now. So there's definitely it's a good reason to be choosy, I suppose. Yeah,
the idea of waste is it's disheartening, especially in rural areas that depend on it as subsistence. There's always going to be a story every couple of years, it seems like, of absolute waste and poaching and leaving it. On Prince of Wales, there have been people who've found nice blacktail bucks that the head's cut off and the backstrap's gone, and other times it's just dead deer that have been shot, that someone driving around spotlighted, shot, and just left it. And you think, that's exactly the type of reason that more regulation, or people come in and say you're being irresponsible with it, and you're inviting more regulation with it. The tendency is to blame outsiders, to blame non-residents, and they're the ones that are doing it. But a lot of times it's the non-residents who cherish the experience so much that they wouldn't dare waste it or dare poach. It's sad. It's disheartening what would drive someone to do it. But that's different than you do a poor job butchering versus killing for the sake of killing and leaving it. That's you guys see much of the poaching type stuff up there, or is that your localized Facebook post arguing or upset about people wasting deer up there, or moose or caribou or anything?
I think there's always, in terms of caribou hunting, where I see the biggest issues with waste is we have the registration permit hunt is RC 860, and it's off the Steese. And this year I think it was, you had to take was it this year? No, because they upped the quota for that. So it was caribou, but like guys will, whether they're shooting into a herd and tag more than one, or whether it's like they shot a cow and they wanted to get a bull. Like I've seen, the Facebook post of like, was driving along, just found this shot cow laying in the ditch. Nobody even attempted to get to her.
Well, we witnessed it firsthand when we did that hunt in November.
December 1st.
December, right?
December 1st, yeah.
And it's up the Steese Highway, so it's kind of
northeast of town.
It's northeast of town. It's kind of heading the same direction as you're going out towards the Dalton, but that road ends up at Circle. And, it's definitely different in some ways than the Hall Road hunting, but it's, I know it's more accessible because it's a rifle hunt. And so there's a lot of people
100 miles outside of town.
Yeah, it's only 100 miles outside of town. The road's easier than the Hall Road, than the Dalton Highway. So
you can use 4-wheelers and snow machines.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, we saw some unethical stuff, really, bad. I mean, when we were laid down in the snow and the light, it's starting to get more light, and we were, there were no bulls, so we said, well, here's where we are, and we'll look for two good older, two mature cows and take them. And we hear behind us snow machines or 4-wheeler, whatever people were on. We hear the machine stop just over a rise, and we hear ARs back there, just semi-automatic gunfire, and then that herd comes out, and we watched one fall over dead, and the people who were hunting it walked right past it. It was a little, and I don't know if it was a stray bullet that hit it, or I don't know really what happened, but we were butchering 2 caribou, and it was maybe 150 yards away. We watched this little boo lay down in the snow and just died, and the hunters walked right past it, and I mean, within 3 yards of it, and wouldn't even look down at it. I mean, just eyes front, kept walking because they were going to go after what they were after. So I'm hoping that cop caught up with them.
Yeah, and that was the other thing for both of those, the registration and for the Hall Road. I think one of my 4 trips up the Hall Road, I didn't see a trooper. The other 3, I saw them, and 2 out of the 3 I was stopped myself. And you just double checks. Do you have your bowhunter certification? You have your license and your harvest tags and things like that. So they definitely know there's an issue. And in terms of the Hall Road stuff, I think a lot of I like that you've got to have your bowhunter certification, but I think a lot of guys get it, and then you don't have to be super talented to shoot a compound bow and pass, what is it? Was it 10 targets? I think it's 5 3D targets, and you've got to do each target 1 standing and 1 kneeling. And I think the longest shot was like 32 yards.
32, yeah. Yep.
And you don't have to be super talented to have pins at 10 and 20 and 30 yards and hit what you're aiming at. But what ends up happening is guys, they practice out to 50, 60 yards, but when that caribou walks past at 100, you're like, oh, I'll just hold high and pray. Yeah. I think I don't want to say any names, but there's a podcast that I listen to, and I think the phrase is, if there's carbon in the air, there's hope. and maybe I'm using that out of context, but it seems to be applied liberally sometimes on the North Slope. I was talking to a guy the 3rd time I went up there. It was super slow. No one had seen any caribou. And there's a kind of a group of guys, and I pulled over to see how everybody was doing. And the one guy had shot a bull, and we were talking to him about what he did. And he apparently owns an archery shop down in California, and is sort of super talented. And how he ended up doing it was he shot his caribou at 110 yards across a pond in the neck, and it eventually died. But it was one of those, I personally have a distance in my mind that this is the distance. And I know, I practice out to 80, 90, 100 yards. We've got an awesome outdoor range here at the university, and you can practice pretty deep, and there's very few people out there. So you can take some time on a weeknight and get out there and be the only one by yourself. So you can shoot so that when I shoot an animal at 40, it feels like a chip shot, And I feel too much farther past that. And I know this is this is like everything, whether it's rifles or crossbows or archery, this is the argument, right? Like everybody's different, but I feel like you've got to have your own limitations and then stick to that.
So what's your number, Steve? I'm gonna write mine down. You write yours. What's your number? What's your number?
I think that animals in the wild, like first blood with my compound bow, is 50 yards.
Yeah.
Like I won't shoot past 50, and it's been too long since I shot my longbow for me to even have a good number. But yeah, that's
I think 45, 50 was mine with the compound, and I was practicing 80. I never really practiced further than 80. I had an 80-yard pin, which I only ever used just to do something fun, like, hey, watch how far I can shoot.
Right.
But shooting longbow now, I mean, I really 30 yards, man. I mean, ideally 12 yards. 12 is beautiful. I am good. I'm Howard Hill at 12 yards, man.
Well, and that was, we were talking about road hunting. We had gone out, and when I went down with, we have a mutual friend, Raphael. I went and hunted Prince of Wales with him for Sitka deer. And we had hiked all day on some logging roads and looking, didn't find any deer. And when we were down there, we got in the truck, we're driving back home for the night. It was, dusk, but still visible. And we had a little buck run across the road and then stop just inside the tree line. And Ralph looked at me and he's like, you still got your bow? But he's not going to stand there all day, go. And, put a big cedar tree between the deer and myself and just walked straight at him. And when I got to the same height that the deer was at, because on the other side of the road the hill kept going up, and I got to the same height as the deer and peeked. I could see his rump on the other side of the tree, and I drew and then leaned forward. And I mean, that was I stepped it off afterwards. That deer was 9 yards away when I shot. Like, that's the ideal, right? Like, if I get single digit yards,
first down away, then you're good.
Yeah, that's perfect. But yeah, I don't know, and I'm sure that someone listening, one or two of your listeners, oh no, 60, or oh no, you shouldn't shoot past 30, or mine's 80, and everyone has their own range, right? That you feel like this is it. But it's one of those things I think you really have to cement in, like last hour of the last day, and that bull is 15 yards farther than that limit you set. Like, are you still gonna stick to it?
Well, the biggest thing with anything, whether you're shooting a bow or shooting a rifle, it's your personal ethics, and you really only have to answer to yourself. And so some people say, well, it shouldn't be any more than this or that, or your limitation should be this. Well, I don't really care what you think. It's a matter of, are you consciously, and can you sleep at night with what you're doing? There's always going to be you look back and think, that may have stretched it, or maybe I kind of got caught up in the moment, but it really doesn't matter what other people think. It's just a matter of what you're really honestly comfortable with shooting and how you conduct yourself. Because there's always going to be some people who say that's not good enough. That's horrible. That's bad. That's unethical. And just go crazy trying to please everybody.
Right. I think the other thing, if well, I don't know what you want to call it, people that aren't really using good shot limitation or good shot choices, if that's one thing, the only other thing I think that bothers me about the haul road hunt is just how dirty people leave it. I think, like, once you get off the road a little bit, you don't see it as much, but every pullout's got, wads of toilet paper or cans that have been crushed and left, or, rings of a fire pit with tons of garbage still in it. And then there's issues. The first time I think we went up there was the guy had his tent torn open by a bear. The same kind of, don't have food in your tent, don't have, especially with vehicles right there, you can leave that stuff and not, you habituate the bears especially to the fact that that's just easy food side of the road like that. But yeah, the toilet paper, the things like that, like, those are easy fixes that people just kind of are lazy about.
Well, there's any place that you would think there wouldn't be that, it would be in the Arctic Circle, going north until you hit the last little tip of land until it's Arctic Ocean. That's too bad, but I guess people are people. How many? What's the grizzly bear population? How often do you see them up there?
There was one when we were there, right? Or that second trip we made when we were camping at Tulik. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, there was a bear up the road somewhere," but I don't think it was bothering anybody. Other than that, I don't think we saw any bear sign in all the walking we did.
The second 2 times I went, I've seen bear scat one other time. I think they know, and the grizzly bear hunt up there is. Last time I went was 2 years ago. The grizzly bear hunt is just a registration permit. So you just go online, print your permit before you leave, and take it with you. And if you see one, you could potentially hunt for it if you wanted to. So I think that they're probably heavily pressured. I think everybody that goes up there either doesn't want to see one at all or would love to take a grizzly bear with a bow. So I think they know most of the time that human beings are not who they want to be around.
Coming from Southeast, where the program is pretty easy in the spring, go to those grassy tidal flats, and then in the fall, go to a river that has fish. Those massive expanses of space, it would be hard to kind of choose where exactly you think you would see one. Like, where might there be a concentration, but you're not looking for a concentration. I've seen 5 or 6 black bears on the same river. You just go another 100 yards, you see another couple bears. I think hunting bear up there would be pretty almost maddening. But there are some creeks up there. Do any of those get there's some fish on some of those rivers, right? What are you seeing up there? River fish wise.
Grayling and whitefish, really. And the whitefish, I guess it's got to be they won't be in a creek. Those will be in the river. That Sag River, I don't know what's in that. It's pretty silty. So it's got to have grayling in it. And I would imagine maybe whitefish in that river.
Yeah. Char maybe?
Maybe char, yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they're living on fish. I think it's a lot of berries and squirrels and any kind of calves that they can come across when the caribou or the moose are dropping calves. I'm sure that's pretty heavily predated. But yeah, I
think it's pretty random,
Yeah,
we see the difference in size between the grizzly and then the brown bear, the coastal brown bear, especially in the Katmai area, where you can go to that viewing platform and you can take photos, amazing photos of these brown bears. But there's so many fish that there's not a competition for resources, and so you're getting amazing pictures of these massive bears because there's so much food around. And people down south get that kind of idea that this is a beautiful, majestic beast that doesn't want any trouble. But if you get away from that and you are camping and you do have food and the thing isn't well fed, and you're inviting people into your tent if you keep your stuff there. And it's a big state. There's a lot of things to consider when you're going up there. But what would you recommend for people who go up there if they're going to do the haul road hunt? What are some to-dos and to-don'ts?
Depending upon, I would go up there with an idea of how you want to approach it, whether you're going to drive the road or whether you're going to set up camp and walk in. It's kind of the same as every hunt. For the last 2 times I went, we knew we were going to stay a little closer to the road, but wanted to walk out. I just had a pack frame and a dry bag and just kind of kept an extra layer, water purification stuff, and emergency gear and a kill kit in that dry bag, and didn't have hardly anything on me. But if you're going to walk out, have a good set of boots. I would expect, I know some guys hunt it in like muck boots or extra toughs. To me, that's beastly. The tussocks are wet, and kind of like in between them, there's almost always standing water. Mm-hmm. So I could see I see what's the word I'm looking for? I can see the idea of why you'd want to wear extra toughs, but my feet wouldn't survive 3 or 4 days in rubber boots.
A good ankle fit muck boot, or what have I got? Look, Lacrosse, yeah. You'd want them insulated because it's going to get cold. Your feet are going to get cold.
Yeah.
Oh, cold. Yeah, if you're tent sleeping, thermarest or something, a cot. If you're driving anyway and you have room, bring a bed. Bring something to get, because that ground is cold. If you do not have something a good sleep system, it's like laying on an ice cube. It's hard. It's cold. It's miserable.
Yeah.
What do you do? You tent camp, or do you like have something in the back of the truck, or what do you guys do?
We tent camped that last time we went together, and I had a pretty good sized tent. It was like a 6-man type situation. And we set it up in the dark, and we got everything in. We were pretty tired. Like, all right, cool. We're here. We got this little spot, this pull out, and the infamous squirrel killing pull out. And the fly was red. It was a Coleman tent, so it wasn't a great tent. I've got a much better one now, but we were set up where we had our gear in the middle, and we were at each end of this rectangle, And man, I woke up. We heard an 18-wheeler blow by, and honk its horn. I'm still not sure what that was about, but it woke me up, and I was having the craziest dreams, And I was sleeping really hard. I mean, just weird dreams. And then when I kind of cracked my eyes open, everything was red. And I was like, well, what's going on? You kind of try to figure out. I was sleeping so hard. I was trying to figure out where I was. Well, it had snowed in the middle of the night and collapsed my end of the tent. So the fly in the wall of the tent was pressed on my head, and I had like 6 inches of snow outside, or some 3 or 4 inches just packed on top of my head. And I guess all that cold sitting on my skull, I don't know if I was close to death or delirious or what. But the tent was nice. So once we got the snow brushed off, we were good. It was a good place to come back and sleep for a few hours at a time, and keep your gear in it and everything, so we didn't have to keep going in and out of the truck. I'd recommend it.
Yeah. And this past year or 2 years ago, when I went with my buddy Chris, I have a Seek Outside teepee with a little backpacking stove, and that was money. Like, being able to have something in the tent that you could warm things up with really helped out a lot. So if you have anything like, I know a lot of guys will go out there with a propane buddy heater, something like that. It gets cold. Like, once you're on the north side of the Brooks Range, I mean, weather is anything goes.
Yeah.
We were, I think, August 7th or 8th when we were up there, and that was when it snowed. Yeah, about 4 inches or something. And then by the afternoon, it was all gone.
Yeah, a stove is money, because we were heating up Mountain House. You jet boil your water and put it in your Mountain House, and you got to wait the 8 minutes or whatever, and you're using it like a hot water bottle, tuck it in your shirt or whatever. You're curled up around this, pasta primavera. Like, I'm going to eat you in 8 minutes, but until then, I'm going to cuddle you. I am going to cuddle you. Yeah.
When you get a kill, do you eat anything in the field? That's one of the popular things that you watch the meat eater with Ranella, and he's eating some of the kill. Do you eat any of it out there, cook it up, or do you take it all back?
I don't think we did that time, did we?
No, I think the first 2 times we didn't bring any firewood with us. And the last time I went, I did. And so being able to have that open fire was nice. But no, the first 2 times...
Squirrel.
Squirrel. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we do in the field. We eat squirrel.
But there's and that was the other thing. Like, if you don't think to bring firewood, there's nothing to burn up there. Like, there's no wood anywhere to be found.
And I've done that in the village too. And we got fog. Like, it's the same latitude. So the weather, I was out with my brother-in-laws, and we were 4-wheeling. So they're half Inupiaq and half Sioux, these guys. And you're 4-wheeling and going across this open tundra, and there's a cabin way out, so we want to take you to, and we'll fish and hunt. It's going to be great. They really wanted to show me a good time, and the fog came in, it got dark, we were stranded where we were, we couldn't move. And I was kind of a little freaked out, it's because there's so much nothing, and it was freezing cold, and we were breaking off they have these willows that are about knee high, scrub, and the branches, they're like the size of your index finger, about that diameter, and they look dead, but they're not. They're just dormant. They're alive, but like barely, and so they don't really. You would think they burn, so you're breaking these things up trying to make a little fire, and no, it was just miserable. And I thought I was going to die. And my other brother-in-law, Arthur, I look over and he's pulling his box off the back of the four-wheeler, and I'm like, oh, he must have food or something. What? He starts lighting off fireworks and just giggling to himself. And I was like, well, he's not worried. I'm not worried. We must not be, going to die out here. But yeah, the weather just comes in on you like that. And, if there's you don't plan ahead, you're going to be pretty miserable.
Well, that's the thing too. If you're hunting from your vehicle, you're really not too worried about space, and having to pack stuff around. So you just fill the truck, man, or fill the vehicle, and there's really no to be that
heavy.
Yeah, and that was something too that we looked at. I bring at least one full tank of gas in water drums. Not a good idea. In gas cans, and then as you're driving up, we'll leave Fairbanks. And when I get to Coldfoot, I'll fill up. And then that'll take you to, you could drive all the way to Prudhoe Bay if you wanted to. So I'll fill up there, and then I've got another tank of gas so I can take. And I know that if we drive around on what's remaining, I can fill up with those fuel tanks. And if I needed to, I could go all the way to Prudhoe Bay or back to Coldfoot and fill up again. I've never done that because
we don't make that kind of money.
Yeah, right. And you just kill so much time driving just to get fuel. I would way rather walk around and hike and try to do.
What's it like driving through the Brooks Range? Is it mountainy? Is it just kind of hilly? What's the terrain like?
So when you get up there, it's hilly until you get to the range. And like when you're in, what is that? Anaktuik Pass? Is that? No, that's the
Adigan Pass.
Adigan Pass.
Adigan Pass. Oh,
dude, the pucker factor. Adigan Pass. 3 out of the 4 times I've gone, there was snow in the pass in August. That there are 18-wheelers going both directions, and same thing. 3 out of the 4 times were so foggy, you maybe had like 20 yards of visibility with headlights on. Like there could be a truck on you so fast, especially on the downhill.
This is why I let Steve drive. Made him the man he is today.
It's character building. That's all. It's character.
I was in the passenger seat, white knuckling the handle. It's just, it's miserable.
It's really the only part of the road that there's one spot called Roller Coaster Hill, I think, and if that was icy, that would be horrible. And that's just it's not too far out of Live and Good, but you can see the other side, like the road. You can look across the gap, and it's essentially like you drive down into the valley and then you come up, and rather than a bridge, the road just goes down at feels like a 45-degree angle and comes up the same degree, and then you just keep going. But that's fun almost. And then, but Adigan, low visibility. There's trucks that can't stop. Like if they came down on top of you.
And this is the ice road truckers. I mean, this is really. This is that bunch, and if they're on you, and that's the part that makes me the most nervous. I just don't like driving around those rigs.
Yeah, and the two, I would say the thing is to make sure, just give them a ton of space. I don't know. I could see there's guys that just sort of park in the middle of the road, and I could see why the truck drivers get so frustrated with hunters up there. But I've always, anytime they're trying to make time, and anytime I can get out of their way and let them go past me, I will.
But there is no shoulder. That's why it's when we talk about these little gravel pullouts, sometimes it's competitive looking for a spot because there's no 5 feet of shoulder on each side. I mean, it's just this raised gravel road, and every inch of it is used.
Yep. And you could go 20 miles before there's another gravel pullout too. Like it's not just, we'll go down to the next one a couple hundred yards away. It could be a while before you find another good spot to get your tent all the way off and your truck all the way off the road so that you're out of danger. Because those trucks, when they go by, they're moving. And so that's an interesting aspect of the hunt too. But yeah, adding in passes.
But it's beautiful.
When you come over the top and you can see the North Slope, it's like looking at like Mars.
Yeah.
Like everything's flat, and like when you hit it in August and everything's red and yellow, the tundra's changing colors. It's gorgeous. But yeah, it's a little steep, and when there's a lot of fog or a lot of snow and things can get slippery and low visibility, it's it's something I think about every time we go up there for sure.
Is there a time during the hunting season when you're not going to anticipate ice or potential snow or really cold temperatures, or is that just one of the things you have to deal with if you're going to do this?
Yeah, if it's not snow and ice, it's bugs. Like if I know people who have gone up 4th of July and been successful, but if you don't have a head net and your hands covered, it's going to be a different kind of misery, but it's still going to be, those kinds of problems. I've always thought I was fortunate that I went up after the snow because all the bugs are knocked way down.
Yeah. And what is it like being up there? Like you said, it looks like Mars or just some otherworldly type place. And then looking to the right or left and seeing the pipeline. What is that? You just kind of ignore that, or what? How's that?
You want to go?
It's there. I mean, it's a landmark, gives you something to walk against, I guess.
Yeah, there's a couple spots where we've just walked, it'll go out away from the road, and we use that a couple times, just jump on the little road that follows it and walk as far as you want to walk. There's some good spots where you can follow the pipeline and kind of glass off of, go over a high spot, and makes walking a lot easier for sure. When Tim shot his bull on the side of the road, it walked right underneath the pipeline and died like
right there.
Yeah, 20 yards out from underneath it. It's interesting. It's definitely juxtaposed to the rest of the landscape. You see these 18-wheelers and a pipeline, and then you look the other direction, and there's not a sign of any human being there since they crossed the land bridge. It's a cool feeling.
Most of it, the vast majority of it is built at a height that stuff can travel underneath it, right? Is that all of it, or is that just most of it?
There's sections where it goes underground. Mm-hmm. To go to do different things. But yeah, most of it, like I can stand underneath it. It's probably 7 feet off the ground.
It's pretty tall.
Yeah.
Well, good stuff. You guys got anything else to add about the old pipeline road or the Hall Road hunt up there? Anything else to add?
I would bring a fly rod. Like if as you come across, I think the first couple creeks, Hess Creek, and I can't remember what the second one is. There's good grayling, like especially if you walk a little bit away from the road, because everybody that fishes right next to the road. If you walk a little bit away, there's some pretty good grayling fishing up there. I took my uncle up there. He came up, and all he wanted was to catch a fish north of the Arctic Circle so he could brag to all his buddies that he had been fishing and caught fish. But we threw spinners and all sorts of stuff at the grayling. They weren't really interested, but the flies, the dry flies, grayling was voracious.
What weight rod, what type of fly, and then how big are the fish?
I'd have a 5-weight Reddington rod, and let's see, I think mosquito. You can't go wrong with mosquito pattern. You like the Royal Coachman?
Royal Coachman is my go-to. Yep.
And but I mean, depending upon where you're at, you can regularly. We were pulling, 10, 12-inch grayling out, which aren't monsters, but you can catch them very consistently, and they like to fight and play. So the lighter rod you can bring, I think the more fun you'd have. But yeah, if you got into a good spot, you could definitely be pulling out, I think 12, 15-inch grayling pretty regularly.
Nice. Very good. Well, thanks, guys, for the information. This is some good stuff I got to put on the list. For your information, Steve, I know the last time we talked, you'd mentioned that you were advised never to make big decisions in February, and I did not end up getting that pack that I was looking at. And February is almost over, but I think I'm past the temptation to buy it. I think I'm just going to go with what I have so far, save some money, and then try to do a big trip somewhere, maybe do the hunt. Then I will wish I would have had the pack that will enhance the experience. But for now, I'm pretty good on that. So thanks for the advice there. Saved my money.
You're welcome. But I want you to know you'll be rethinking this conversation when you have something dead and heavy on your back. Damn, I should have bought the pack. Why didn't I buy it?
When I take my dry bags and I fix them to the outside of my pack because there's not enough storage space inside. And so, yeah, when I'm walking out and stuff is like jarring loose, even though I've got it pretty wrapped in there, I will definitely remember back to that and think, man, I had a good plan and I had a good pack in mind and I didn't pull the trigger. So, yeah, it's suffering, right? Suffer enough, you eventually do something about it.
Eventually.
Yeah, but well, any closing thoughts, guys?
No, I think it's in terms of wrapping up ideas on the haul road, it's awesome. I would say I usually wait till I hear people are seeing the Caribou start to move before I like book my ticket and go do it. If they're not moving, like I said, it can be kind of a wasteland. Having something like know that you're either going to walk off the road or you're just going to stick to driving and know your limitations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for being on. Appreciate the time here, spending some of your snowy afternoon in Fairbanks inside. I'm sure it really pained you to be inside when it's 0 degrees outside.
Well, I got my 50. We're at my office up on campus, actually. My son is sitting out in the other room waiting. He's 50. He always does odd jobs for a friend of ours that owns Chattanooga Lodge north of town. We have a camp up there, and the old man who runs the place, or it's his lodge, he loves this kid. It's like his grandkid, so he's always got Connor out there working. So we went up last night and shoveled the trailer off, and got, like 3 foot of snow off the roof of this trailer that's been accumulating all winter. So he's got some more chores for him, and the wind's blowing outside. It's cold, and the poor kid, he does Native Youth Olympics, and his competition was the last 2 days, and he did really well. He took first and second at a couple of events, but he couldn't get out of bed this morning. He was so sore after we went straight from the competition, drove 40 miles north of town or 30 miles north of town, and he shoveled snow all night, and he's a little beat up, and that's where we're headed right now, right back over there. And I think the old man's going to put him in the bucket of the Bobcat and lift him up so he can rake snow off of something else. So I'm going to sit in the lodge and so he can go out there and become a man.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we'll have to do a Fairbanks special and talk about all the great summer things to do as well, kind of around town things to see in case people are heading up there. So we'll be thinking about that for next episode. Yeah. Well, thanks guys for being on, and we will talk to you next time for sure.
Right. Thanks,
awesome.
Jeff.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks to Steve and Tim for being on here. Make sure you go to themediocrealaskan.com, check out content, and we will talk to you next time.